Hey everyone, welcome to the MovieMantz Q&A. And just recently, I did a conversation with Peter Garrity, the star of Working Man, about the making of this extraordinary film, a film that is very, very timely and relevant. And now I'm going to continue the conversation with the writer, director, producer, and other cast members as well. So Working Man is about a working man, longtime factory worker in a small town who loses his job and loses his purpose. And when he finds a new purpose, look out. Let's take a look at Working Man.
You just disappear. You're not here.
I am. I was.
Valerie, we can't have you in here. We just can't.
Why are you doing this?
It's just something I need to do.
It's a small town. It's hard to keep secrets around here. You want in that factory? They ain't gonna arrest us all, Valerie.
You did this?
Well, not me. They're out there because of you.
New Liberty's former workers have re-entered the plant and pledged to fulfill the outstanding orders promised to clients.
I just want to do my job.
And joining us right now to further the discussion about Working Man, we have writer, director, producer, Robert Jory. Robert, thank you so much for joining me here.
Thank you, Scott. Pleasure to be here.
We have Billy Brown, who plays a very, very crucial role in Working Man. Hi, Billy.
Good, how are you? Thanks for having us.
Thank you for being here. And also joining us is the lovely and talented, the legend, TALIA Shire. Hi, TALIA. Okay, well, let's just get right into it here. Robert, this is your first movie. You wrote it, you directed it, you produced it, and you did write it, and it all starts with the screenplay. What started you down this journey, and where were things in our society when you first started working it compared to where they are now?
Yeah, well, things were quite different when the screenplay was first written. The original draft, honestly, was written on the heels of the 2008 recession, banking crisis, and you know, the fact that it took a decade to get the film made is one thing, but then to end up where we are amid a pandemic with so many people having lost their livelihoods and so many people unemployed, and this issue of work and mental health, both themes of the film, is pretty extraordinary. The timing of it all. So no, not at all something we could have predicted, but I think this is a story that's kind of landing at the right place in the right time.
I mean, it is bonkers how timely and relevant it is now, more so now. And Talia, I want to get your take on the screenplay. Like when you first saw the Parks family here, like what was your take on where they were in their lives, and where you saw the story go as you were reading the screenplay?
Well, the script was given to me by my dear friend, Clark Peterson, who said, please, I want you to read this. And so the reading of a script is fascinating because you have to visualize it and see it. And I kept turning the pages and I said, oh my God, it's 40 pages in. And Valerie, who is our hero lead, hasn't said a word. How's this going to work? It was so unique and strangely beautiful, and so powerful. And you were talking about these times at this moment. You know, people need a job. You need to wake up in the morning. You need a job. If you're a dancer, you need a job. If you're a musician, you need a job. You need a job. You need a place to go. You need meaning and depth. And this piece just sort of had it all for me. And the uniqueness of the casting as well. I love Peter. You've met Peter, so you know, right?
Lovely.
One who has this great soul that can carry this strange tragedy that he and his wife, I play his wife, have been enduring for oh so many years. And then the great character played by Billy, who I call our angel. You know, so this is a strangely unique piece. You could say, yes, it's real, but at the same time, it's ultra real. At the same time, it's romantically real, because in the end, it lands sort of as a love story. But it also is full of, and Robert, you need to help me with this, tremendous respect for the working man, working man and woman who gets up and does that job, and what happens, right, when the job is gone. And so this is explored in the most unique way. I'm sort of went around it, but but I'm back to what I felt it was, unique on the page and unique to watch it as a movie experience.
Robert, that was your cue to take it from there, based on what Talia said.
Yeah, well, you know, Talia and I had an interesting conversation even yesterday morning, and just the fact that this is kind of a unique love story as well. It's about a couple that's rediscovering themselves, their relationship late in life, and about this character, this working man who's, it's absolutely a kind of a tribute to these the folks that perform blue collar jobs, but also you know, Peter's character, main character, really doesn't discover who he is until very late in life. I mean, he doesn't really come out of his shell as a leader, and that's, of course, due directly to not only the challenges that he's facing with the loss of work and in his relationship with his wife, played by Talia, but also from the character that Billy portrays. Billy is kind of the fire starter. His character, Walter Brewer, is that person that really evokes the change in the story. And in a lot of ways, it's Walter, it's Billy's movie in a great sense, because it changes at some point. You think the story's going one particular way, and Walter has other ideas. And I just think Billy brought an amazing, he brought that character alive, I think, and did such a marvelous job in the film.
Billy, I got to say, when I was watching this for the first time, I thought the movie was going to be one thing, and it turned into something very, very different. And the relationship, you know, between Walter and Allery, like what was your point of connection for Walter, and what was your take on the proactive direction he takes this movie?
My take was knowing that the rest of, as I learned through speaking with Bob in our first interactions, and reading it and the nuance and the rhythms and the subtleties and the tapestry Bob had created. Our fictional town of Orridge had been, you know, rendered under a state of paralysis, as Benny reminds us, one of our great Chicago actors who plays my neighbor, Sal, his real name. He reminds in one of his soliloquies that this is the last factory, you know, that is closed down amongst countless others. And now what are we to do? Mm-hmm. They're at a penultimate moment, each and every one of them. And so in reading it, I realized very quickly, there's one guy who's not. There's one guy who is moving forward at a pace he can't even identify, and doing things which he may not know the repercussions and how wide they spread, specifically how they're going to impact what comes to be probably his dearest friend he's ever had in the unlikely hero of our story, Allery Park. So, you know, all those elements in Walter's movements and his speech and his decision-making, you know, as Peter has said many times, you know, we're in the middle of these lives. We find ourselves here. How do we arrive, and what are we to do about it? Mm-hmm. And it was so fascinating how Bobby had created this man, Walt Brewer, who would sit on his porch and with such detail create these military figures, and then reveal later he was putting them in landscapes with the backdrop painted on his walls and using furniture and bringing them more to life. And all of that mixed in with his sheer bravado, we understand later where it comes from. I couldn't say no. Plus working with Talia and Peter, of course, you know.
Well, I got to ask, Robert, how did you first of all, let's sing the praises of Peter Garrity for a second here. I mean, here's an actor who has been at it for decades. To talk about a working man in this business, and the actors and the filmmakers, the directors that he's worked with, whether it's Mike Nichols, Steven Spielberg, and how did you come to cast him in his first lead? This is his first lead performance. How did that happen?
Really by good fortune, honestly, Scott. I will say this, when I was writing the script, I didn't have any particular actor in mind. I didn't have, I was writing this as I knew it would probably be an independent film. I hadn't had anything produced as of yet. So I couldn't operate with the confidence that there would be, some famous A-list actor that that everybody in the world might know. But I did have this idea that whoever ended up in the part of Valerie Parks would be someone who's had a history in the theater and has had probably would have had a long career. And that's exactly what Peter is and what he brought to the role. As you mentioned, he's got this storied career on Broadway in multiple television series, hit series, from Homicide to, most recent, The Wire, Sneaky Pete, and film roles for years. I think Working Man, in fact, is maybe his 100th or 99th credit on IMDb. So, I mean, he's certainly put in his dues. And when we started looking at who this character, who this person might be, it's not an easy character to cast, really. It's the list became very small, and Peter just rose to the top of it, and very lucky that he agreed to do the film, in the same sense that we're very lucky that Billy and Talia came on, because they came together very quickly. And I don't know that it always happens, but on a movie, but the chemistry between these three was instantaneous. I mean, they just came together without a lot of rehearsal, if any, and some days, and quickly married together, because it is, as Talia mentioned, kind of this strange love story, almost not a traditional love triangle, but they form into this unique family by the end. Not to give too much away, but it's I feel like it's that type of story that from the most unusual backgrounds and situations, maybe these three people come together, and again, I think it started with Peter and his character, and the way that Talia and Billy then came in, and the way that it all meshed was just, I think, pretty magical, and I'm really, really grateful that how it panned out.
Listen, the word meshed, I mean, it's not the grandest word, but it works in the sense that the three of the actors here, Billy and Talia and Peter, they all have this dynamic chemistry that works. But the dynamic between like Billy, you and Peter, versus the dynamic between Talia, you and Peter, is very, very different. So Billy, like, what's
so interesting is then I love the ballet, okay? And then we all dance together. It's kind of this beautiful partnering. But it's Billy who, and I believe that's what's so, I don't want to give anything away, but it's Billy who gives permission, right, to Allery, played by Pete, to be born, to be reborn, even to grief, even to the loss that our family tragedy, husband and wife, are dealing with. But it has a kind of beautiful, Robert Jury, you created this beautiful ballet of the three of us, right? And I find it sublime. And it is true, not any actor could play that walk, those pages and pages or minutes and minutes of silence, right? That's not an easy thing to do, nor is it easy for Walter, played by Billy, to appreciate that man, what he could be. And then we all dance together.
What was your dance like with Peter, Billy?
I tell you what, Peter's tremendous. Aside from the multitude of stories he would regale you with, at a moment's notice during camera check or a little company move, the guys live so much. I mean, from India to New York and up north in San Francisco, but the work of it, is easy. As Peter says, he's a lover of actors and of people, and our one of our early scenes in the factory, he shares his lunch with me. And it was very, very easy, very comfortable, very flowing. And that's the kind of guy he is. And as Talia has spoke to, that's what allowed Peter Garrity to embody Ellery Parks in such a way that the tragedy that has, nearly crushed the spirit of the man, put him into a sort of purgatory, as Talia has said, allowed you to still want to be engaged with Ellery Parks, played by Peter Garrity, because he has that essence of himself. And then working with him, he shares that with you.
He does share it.
He's getting close. Yeah, it's wonderful.
So Robert, while you're directing these scenes, because Peter divides his time between Billy and with Talia, and they're not, the three of them aren't really together all that much. But what was it like when you were? How did they exceed your hopes and expectations when you're watching them doing these scenes? And are you a director that does 50 takes? Are you good with one or two? How do you roll?
Well, as a first-time director, I don't know that I would say that what the style is, other than I can tell you, because of the necessities of an independent film and the necessities of independent film and or what you don't have, right, as far as time and money. You just have to roll with whatever takes you have in the time that you have, and sometimes it's not as many as you'd like, right?
Sure.
But I was thrilled, honestly, with what we were getting. I mean, this wasn't a situation where I went back and thought, oh, if we just had 3, 4, or 5 more takes. Maybe Billy and Talia thought that about their performances. I certainly didn't. I mean, I thought they gave everything that we ever could have imagined and wanted when it came to editing. So just as far as the experience on set, it was just thrilling for me, because I was seeing the work come alive, and in many cases, in ways that I wouldn't have even envisioned, just because of their individual takes on the material. And that was happening daily. I mean, just in little small ways, just the small things that they would bring to their characters, all three of them, and all three of our leads, and in addition to the great Chicago cast that we had. Tremendous actors out of Chicago where we shot the film.
Scott, I'll add to what Bobby's saying. A lot of credit goes to our writer-director as well, because he has been working this, as you know, Scott, for what, 10 years?
10 years.
And so to have, you can imagine, you have something you've created, you've coveted, you've worked on, you've nurtured, and then part of you has to hand it over to these people. Myself,
oh boy,
Talia, and Peter, the Chicago cast, his DP. So the trust that Bob had in doing so allowed all of us to have more confidence in him, knowing first-time director. But that was out the window, not even a concern. Alongside Piero Basso, our cinematographer, who roomed with Bob.
Right.
But Piero was tremendous in being efficient in his movement and his time, and knowing the script, as Talia said, knowing it to the point where our days, which were precious and long, and every moment, Piero was there for Bob. They had done their homework and they were prepared. The actors came prepared. Our Chicago actors ready to work. Mm-hmm. So, budgetary constraints were inconsequential, because everybody came to play and came to work, and we were able to get it done day in and day out.
Talia, I want to ask you. Yeah. Oh, so go ahead.
No, I would just add on to that. I'm so glad that Billy brought up Piero Basso, our DP, and just the organization that's necessary when you have a smaller budget and less time. And in addition to that, our producing partners, Lovell Holder and Maya Mel and Clark Peterson, those, when you have a great, even if it's a small team, right? When you have those folks to rally around you and organize your days, as Billy mentioned, you really can maximize everything in ways that maybe you hadn't thought possible before. I know one particular day it snowed outside and we had to quickly shift from exteriors to interiors in the factory, and we made up like 4 hours. And you don't do that without everybody being on board, from the crew and to the actors too, who have to, instantaneously forget what they were just preparing to do and do something else. So, I mean, that's real credit to everyone around you as a director. Absolutely.
Ty, I was going to ask, like, when you're working on an independent film like this, where it's, scrappy and the crew is definitely lean, like, how does that sort of elevate your performance? How does that give your performance a sense of urgency and authenticity? Because you don't have a billion people around, you don't have craft services the size of a city block, like how does that sort of independent spirit elevate you as an actor?
I love that question. I love this. I love an independent filmmaking. I absolutely love it. And I sort of said this before, acting is doing. It's doing, and we pass things on. That's how you learn. The prop master teaches the next prop person. The hair person says, listen, do you know about a square bun that was used in 18 blah blah blah. Pass that stuff on. So I have great joy not just working in that kind of wonderful rhythm, because it's very exciting, but also dealing with a crew that has come to work not for maybe a lot of money, happy to put in a lot of time. And I could say things, and I've said this before, well, what Barbara Stanwyck told me? And they was Barbara Stanwyck? And I go, well, but that's how I can say what Barbara Stanwyck told me, because that's how you learn. That's how it's done in movies. It's passed on with these particular, and I feel that in an independent movie. I feel that spirit. And I also feel the desire to be a teacher, in those little tiny ways, and not a pain in the neck, right, Robert? Never,
never were.
Where's my trailer? Never.
No egos. That's a great point though too, because that was my experience. It could have been rough for this first time director, Scott, but Billy, Talia, and Peter were not just generous in what they offered professionally, but also personally, and it made all the difference.
What about you, Billy? How did that independent spirit elevate you, bring out the best in you?
That's an easy one, Scott. Like Ty says, it's a great question, but when you strip all of the trappings away of the money and the cooks in the kitchen,
yep,
and large video village and phones and calls made back to the West Coast,
ooh,
you're there while you're there for the reason you're there. And everybody who is signed on, as our EP Clark Peterson said there afternoon, you're there for the same purpose, the same cause, for the love of story, and to bring the characters to life, no matter what department you represent, or in your own mind, what level you are within your field of operation. You're there for one thing. And for instance, some of the houses we use, my house and the Parks' residence, our art department did a beautiful job of creating, these living spaces. But Norwich, outside of Chicago, was also its own character, with the coldest weather I think Chicago's had since the late 1800s.
Wow.
The gray skies, as you said, Scott, not having that comfort factor of your double banger or your single, and 18 Teamsters shuttling you around. So you were walking in the cold. You were getting driven by Clark Peterson or EP or Maya Level from the hotel an hour into Norwich to set. All those things kept you focused on who you were bringing to life every single day, the people around you, the local Chicago actors, our crew, all from the same mindset. So it was very, in a way, it's a blessing for this story to have the conditions that we did, because nothing was pulling you in the other direction than one movement forward altogether.
You know, watching this film, this felt so authentic and genuine. I related to it on a level of like, okay, well, the events of this past year have definitely made me think, okay, what is my purpose now? But also I thought about, you know, my own father when he retired after being an accountant for 40 years. He drove my mom crazy, and you know, I had them watch the movie back in Philadelphia where they live, and my dad loved it because he totally related to Allery. But you know, what is sort of like you know, I want to ask each of you, like, what is the takeaway for this movie now, which is on demand, and I strongly urge everyone to watch it. Talia, what do you think the takeaway is in the here and now for Working Man?
Well, I do think it's about one's humanity. I mean, that's part of the journey here, and that you need a community, and that community, and you need to wake up in the morning, honest to God, and say, what's my reason for being? You need a job, even if you have to. And I think what we see here, by the way, even though I don't want to give things away, but even though it doesn't quite work, these people do pull something off, and they do discover inspiration and humanity. So I think it does bring up community and intimacy, and how important it is we really must support one another. We really must, you know, we're in this thing together.
No kidding. How about for you, Billy? What's the takeaway for you?
I would say is Bob had a great quote on one of our, I don't know, one of our press kits. But again, the love of your fellow man, the support of those that may not have what they need to take that next step forward and the step after that, just as you may one day. And collectively, you know, how it really does make a difference when you throw the keys to the guy who you least expect will get behind the truck and take it for a spin. What that impact that really means for him to hold those keys through metaphor or otherwise, but literally to hold the keys and be the captain of his own ship with your assistance can really go a long way.
And Peter, you're Robert, Peter, Robert, you know, you're there from the beginning, you know, putting pen to paper, this journey to make this film, to have the times shift in such drastic ways from the you know, the economic recession to where we are now. What is the takeaway that you would like for people watching this movie now to take with them?
I think, to me, it boils, if it's one word, I think it's hope. You know, particularly with where we are right now as a country and a world, right, and the challenges that we've all faced. I think it is ultimately a hopeful movie, right? Out of loss can be born something new, as Talia has said so many times as we were making the film, and since it's just this rebirth. And I think there is a great amount of hope, I think, that exists in this story, and I hope that people can relate to that and maybe use it as something in their own lives that they can take with them and, as you say, take away from the film and the story.
Well, I want to thank all of you for joining me here on the MovieMantz Q&A for a terrific conversation about Working Man. Once again, Working Man is on demand. Please check it out, watch it, and more importantly, tell your friends, your family, your colleagues, everyone you know to watch it, because there is something that we are all going to get out of this film. And thank you all for joining me on this conversation. I really, really appreciate it.
Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it.
Scott.
Thank you.
And once again, make sure you share this video with everyone. And until the next episode of the MovieMantz Q&A, here's looking at you, kid.